Welcome to Group Thinkers. I'm your host, Justin McCord. And Ronnie, you're with me, first of all, so welcome to you.
Here I am.
Here you are. So, very provocative conversation here that we're going to have for a few reasons. Ryan Ginard, our guest, he is dialing in from the land down under. He's dialing in from Australia. So, we avoided the temptation of asking him how the weather is tomorrow, since it's the afternoon for us and early morning for him. But Ryan's a fascinating cat. His second book is coming out shortly, and you're going to tell us a little bit about that. Give us a little of a framing on this chat with Ryan.
Sure. So Ryan, he'll take us through his story, but he started growing up in England, moved to Australia, got started in government a little bit, and moved to the United States, and now he's back in Australia, and he's the founder of Fundraise for Australia, and he's written two books, and they follow a similar theme, and we'll get into a lot of it in the episode here, but the first book was Future Philanthropy, and the second book that's just about to come out is Nonprofit Moneyball: How to Build and Future-Proof Your Team for Big League Fundraising. And we didn't get into this in the episode, but just for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with the concept of Moneyball or haven't seen the movie starring Brad Pitt, I just wanted to unpack that a little bit. And it's all about in baseball in kind of the late 90s, the Oakland A's were a team that has the lowest payroll in the league and the least amount of resources, and they were just desperately looking for some sort of edge to keep up with the big league teams. And so they really leaned into data and analytics, and were the first to kind of figure out things like how many RBIs you got and what your batting average was less important than getting on base, and there was a correlation between getting on base and scoring runs. And it's a whole story behind that, and it's really fascinating. But the point of it is that they were able to think about it differently and bring in something that wasn't being done at the time, and that's really, to me, what Ryan's kind of getting at in his book. He's trying to think about fundraising differently.
Yeah, he's going to say this. Ryan is positioning himself in the posture that I'm not thinking 3 years down the road. I'm trying to think 10 years down the road and work backwards. So, describes himself as a civic connector and fundraiser, but as someone that constantly thinks about the future of philanthropy. That's the name of his first book, and so really interesting guy, very interesting story, and incredibly interesting approach to connecting and trying to live out a life of service. And so, listen in for those things, for those cues, and definitely would encourage uh, our audience to pre-order his book, to order it on Amazon. And so, yeah. So, without further ado, here's Ryan Ginard on Group Thinkers. So our guest today is maybe, I don't know, Ryan. You might be our first global philanthropist, and I don't know if anyone's ever deemed you that. I'm deeming you that today.
I'll take it. I'll take it until we get to the end of the conversation, then I'll reflect.
Then we'll unpack it. Or just like,
Yeah.
never mind. That guy doesn't know a lick
Withdrawn.
about global philanthropy. Ryan, you're joining us from Australia. Thanks for making the time, as it is the morning time for you. It's the late afternoon as we're recording. And I say global philanthropist because you have lived in three very unique spaces, both physical spaces, but also like spaces and points of time with a philanthropic crossover into your physical location. Can you just unpack like your journey from the UK to Australia to the US and then back to Australia?
Yeah, definitely. I'll try and make it as succinct as possible because we can definitely drag on this one. But yeah, I was born and raised in London in the 80s. It was at a time where Thatcherism was kind of front and center, and there was a lot of issues with the economy. My dad was a cleaner, mum was a nurse, so you know, we felt those unique pressures. Definitely kind of in the heart of the working class family, household, and kind of the town that we're in as well. So that growing up was interesting. It was kind of you know, my parents stayed together, so that was great. But there was a distance because they were always working. I've got 3 siblings as well, so being the eldest, you either kind of really rolled up your sleeves and get involved in family life and help your parents out, or you kind of are there drifting a bit. And I felt I was on the drifting side. And then in '97, my mum got the opportunity to move to Australia and be the nurse manager of a private hospital up in North Queensland, which is like on the Great Barrier Reef, those tropical paradise things. But it was a very, very small city, around 180,000, and it was a very, very big culture shock, as it were. So, you know, just even going into my first day in the classroom, I remember 2 things. One, I struggled with nosebleeds. So when it got hot, my nose would just kind of gush. So that was embarrassing from the start. And then 2, there was someone told a student to sit down and he told him to F off. So I'm like, okay, culturally it's different as well. So there's going to take some adjusting. But moving to Australia, it was a great opportunity to realign where I wanted to go and kind of really take education seriously. So I reckon if I was still in England, I'd be working, you know, 9 to 5 factory job, and you know, that's okay, and that definitely contributes to the economy. But I believed it was a second chance. So I kind of really leaned in, and then finished high school, and then moved to Brisbane, which is the capital of Queensland. It's where the Olympics is going to be in 2032. So the kind of mid-tier city really evolving. And then went to university there. I was the first in my family to go. So again, kind of breaking through barriers through an early age, knowing that you could be anything you wanted to be. And got involved in the student union and was running that for a couple of years. Got involved in politics and got to learn a lot in our federal parliament. But burnt out, like I was really involved in our community. I started up a soccer team, which I guess we'll get onto kind of the sporting analogies on that soon. And it's now kind of one of the biggest clubs in the city. I created it about 15 years ago, and it's got like over 1,200 players from little kids up to kind of seniors. And it was a community-based club, but there was a big flood in 2011, and I was just burnt out. Like it was tough. Our district office kind of all the phones were redirected to me, so I had very difficult calls in the evening after kind of slogging away, helping clean and with the recovery efforts. And I just decided to go travel Europe and met a girl in Rome, and that kind of dragged me over to the US and did the political jump, got involved in one of the presidential campaigns, and was based in California, and then never left. But when you never leave, then you're in politics and you're a foreigner, you can't get jobs. So my girlfriend, who's now my wife, she basically said, you're 30 years old, so you got to stop knocking on strangers' doors, especially when they can't understand you. And that was kind of one of those hacks at my accent. But she was right. And luckily, during the campaign, I met a few people that were involved in philanthropy. Obviously, that extension of being a funder and kind of giving to the community. And they got me an interview at the San Diego Foundation, which is about $1 billion endowment now. And it was a stage where they wanted to do civic engagement. And so I came in and led the Civic Leadership Fund, and then went on to lead the actual kind of civic engagement arm. And yeah, just fell in love with philanthropy, to be honest. It was very refreshing going out to the community and saying, how can we help? And instead of canvassing votes to make sure you could help that in a legislative sense, it was about building resources. And it wasn't just a funding thing. That I guess the MO for that Centre for Civic Engagement was to connect with the community that was changing so much. Like even during my time, San Diego changed from a majority white community to a majority people of color. And so kind of seeing that transition was really interesting. And given I wasn't born there, I wasn't, even Australia during my formative years, wasn't born there, kind of had a more curious and critical take on what the communities were and how they were being built up and how they could help and how I could be supportive in that rather than take the lead. The great thing in philanthropy, I think, with growing up, and probably one of the biggest take homes, is that I could be selfless and I could really be a connector and advocate on their behalf because I didn't want anything in return. It was, I was kind of finding myself in the community. And as I said, then became a student of philanthropy, jumped to a small nonprofit that worked with students that were first their families to graduate high school, then go on to college. A few of them were undocumented students, and this is the cool thing. There's actually a TV show made about the actual organization because a number of the students were actually going on to Ivy League schools. And one of them went on to represent the US in squash and then got the pathway.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, she got a Gates Millennial Scholarship and now she's going to, she went to Columbia and now is going to Harvard and she works for Goldman Sachs. And it was on Apple TV on Little America.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, so
yeah,
definitely check that one out.
So that takes you from, so then you go from San Diego where you're working in community building and you actually step into a role in higher education. And then that takes you from San Diego to Austin. And so you had a short stint there. And so, tell us a little bit about that pre-pandemic into pandemic time, 90 miles south of us here.
It's interesting how things go, right? So we obviously living in San Diego is very expensive, and the ripple effect is coming from a family that has not much, and a very small family at that. And my wife has the same on her side. Sometimes you got to move in the best interests of your family and your kids, and give them everything that you didn't have. It's kind of like I hate using this in kind of context involving me, but standing on the shoulder of giants, like all the work and sacrifices made beforehand, kind of benefits that next generation. So yeah, we decided to move to Austin. I'd spoken at South by Southwest a few years before, and we just became enamored with the city. Just the kind of there's just a real energy around it. And my wife is in technical recruiting, so there was a good space, and she got relocated there. But alas, we moved 3 weeks before COVID happened. That kind of really accelerated our transition back to Australia because, going to one of the biggest universities and obviously going to where world-class fundraising occurs, and you've got the best of everything. You've got the gold standards in kind of CRM, you've got the gold standards in research, and everyone is really motivated. I mean, they're going to end a campaign probably oversubscribing the $6 billion target, which is obscene, right? If you look at kind of the nonprofits that you come from. And it really kind of changed my thinking. The reason being is because I ended up in the Department of Computer Science. And with COVID, I'm like, well, I'm not allowed to travel and meet with people. And this is before Zoom really matured a bit. So I was in that 6 months of going, what do we do? How do we engage with donors? And so I didn't have a warm portfolio by any means. So I decided to invest in my understanding of the subject matter, just so I could be a better advocate when we got there, and started learning about machine learning, and started learning about AI, even quantum computing. I took some courses on LinkedIn Learning, Coursera and stuff. I just became fascinated by it. And I'm like, why is the nonprofit space not utilizing these technologies? And why is it being kind of that end of cycle sales vertical for organizations that are really business focused? Like, why aren't we working arm in arm with folks? So yeah, just started doing coding and built a peer-to-peer kind of platform, much like GoFundMe, but tried to gamify it so people could only fundraise after they've developed a partnership or got enough points to unlock that ability. And then just started writing as well. And then it became quite cathartic because, we got into a much better routine with our kids in terms of sleeping. So freed up a bit more time. And then, within 6 months, Future Philanthropy really was born, as it were, in terms of the book. And then for, the 18 months that followed, we had developers, big kind of foundations, regional associations of grant makers, impact investors, just bombarding my inbox, wanting to have a chat, and just seeing. They found it was an interesting take, looking 10 years into the future and deconstructing it, rather than this is the tech now and let's evolve with it, because we always are in that mindset of, well, we're behind everyone else, let's catch up. And it was just fun. And then it ended up winning international awards, and of course I thought that, oh great, this is going to start a whole range of different things. But I kind of thought, where do I want this to go? And I'm like, I don't want it to go into consulting. I don't want to go and get make the monetary kind of benefits that come from a book. I want it to actually spur more conversations and drive my own growth and critical thinking and stuff. And then just kept on writing, and everyone really tapped into the non-profit Moneyball thesis rather than tech thing. So again, it shows that it comes down to people, right? And and then now we're back in Australia, but that's another chapter, and one that we're still writing.
Ryan, before we jump into that chapter of Australia, first of all, I'm always fascinated by what people did during their time of COVID. There was downtime and we had free time, and what people choose to do with it. For me, like, this little Lego stadium back here took up a lot of my time, but you decided to invest and learn and advance yourself in all the sort of technology and AI, like you were just talking about. I'm curious, as you were writing the book and Future Philanthropy, and as you were talking to people, and then after the book came out and you started having all those conversations, who were some of the people that kind of stood out to you as influencing you either to write the book or have influenced you since then? Who were some of the people that have kind of shaped your thinking?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say the biggest one was Trista Harris, who was over at the Minnesota Council Foundation. She wrote the book Future Good, and she came out to San Diego at a point where there was some evolution in the Regional Association of Grant Makers space. They were talking more about what philanthropy can be, rather than it being civic triage, seeding the solutions tomorrow. And she came out for a conference and was the keynote, and I was the chair of EPIP at the time, so Emerging Practitioners in Philanthropy, and she graciously gave us the night before to have a Q&A for a very intimate audience, and then just started thinking, what could be, and what does the future of the nonprofit sector look like? And it kind of was aided by my CEO at the time, who just said, just lean into it. No one's talking about it. If you want a VR kind of booth at the next conference, let's do it. Let's really be future focused, and let's be our values. And we'd just gone through a bit of a review of our mission, vision, and values, and they put future focused in. So Nancy Jameson was the CEO at that time, and they're two of the people that really shaped my thinking and encouraged me to go into writing about it and kind of just ideating. But since the book came out, there's a lot of people there. Is Mark Cobbs, who's over at Fundmetric in Canada. There's Jim Dries, who's down in Austin, who runs the AI fundraising company Politics. So he does a lot of work with UT as well. Obviously, John Goff, who leads their data analytics team. Brett Winkleman, who was chief of staff at the department of the School of Computer Science, and also Zach Richards, who is the chief development officer for the College of Natural Sciences. Given COVID was obviously kind of social distancing, you're still trying to find things, it led to a lot more conversations. It took away the busyness of being in the office and just kind of going, hey, let's talk about advancing this. It's like, well, no, let's talk about what the pipeline looks like in 3 years, and let's be intentional about this time that we're kind of on our heels to come back out stronger, with more purposeful, and let's build out cases for supports for stuff that we didn't think was possible right now. But obviously with the rapid evolution of tech due to necessity of being able to kind of continue working and automating, being remote, just again, fascinating. And it's just, people were willing to let me go down a path and just give me pointers. I think it's just the freedom to be open-minded and think towards the future we can have, not the one that's 3 years down the track because our strategic plan says so.
I can't help but piece together. This isn't intended to be a therapy session for me, Ryan, just so that you know. But I can't help but piece together people's stories whenever we're having these conversations, and I'm seeing like this direct connection to uh, you as a firstborn, and the role of the firstborn in terms of what that looks like of serving, maybe even reluctantly serving their younger siblings, but also the models of service that you had in your parents. Also, from an early age of seeing people connected to things like nursing and what that looks like in serving others and how that winds you through a political realm into a space of serving in a larger civic space in terms of community. And I find that to be truly fascinating that you're on this train, and there's this winding that's happening that's drawing you to who you are today, as you said, as a connector. So where did nonprofit Moneyball, the thesis for applying a sporting mindset and an avant-garde sporting mindset into the nonprofit sector, where was that seated in you?
Yeah, definitely. What I said, it was a random chapter in Future Philanthropy about how we kind of tool ourselves for tomorrow and how we bring new ideas and thinking into the space, and how the jobs of tomorrow in philanthropy are we're gonna have to find them from somewhere because we can't shoehorn a project manager in. So I started, kind of looking more at culture and moving back to Australia, very much so, fundraising is nowhere near like in the US. I used to say it's a decade behind, but it is where it is, right? Because they don't have the vehicles. And obviously, working for a university right now, I thought, okay, the transition is going to be, it's going to be a challenge, but people will understand, given the principles will get us there. But no, a lot of people were reluctant to kind of move things forward because they just have a different business model here. So my thinking really was really, I guess, fueled by building my own team here, and there not being any talent. Like I had to find 3 new people who had skills in alumni relations and fundraising, and you just do your normal searches and you get a candidate pool of like 3 to 4, and all of those are pivoting, and they just weren't suitable. So I'm like, I started actually thinking more back to when I wrote Nonprofit Moneyball, and just started writing about it, my frustrations and the potential of identifying new people and understanding that AI is going to uproot so many industries, and we're going to have to upskill people, and a lot of people are going to have to come along to the services industry. So why not nonprofits? And especially with kind of Gen Z and all of the subsequent ones after that, looking more at values-driven work, and also building a career portfolio rather than just having a long career at a PwC or Goldman Sachs.
Right.
That they will kind of traverse, and maybe we take advantage of their talent for the 2 years that they want to do that pivot, and help them along the way in their own journey. So yeah, just started deconstructing stuff. And I said my wife's a tech recruiter, so she kind of showed me the back end of a few of the platforms she used, and LinkedIn, kind of the stuff that you pay for, a very premium, and started doing kind of keyword searches and deconstructing in my mind what the qualities were. I started asking a few people what they believe the qualities were. And again, this goes to the great thing about LinkedIn, right? You can just throw something into the ether and people can respond, and you can have a conversation, and it gets you to where you need to be. So yeah, Moneyball was a great movie, and I just decided to watch it again, because that time from writing the first book to starting to put the framework to this book, and I started to see it in a whole different light. And I think that, and at the end of the book, I actually have a chapter called Roll the Tape, where I actually pull out parts of the movie and how it relates to fundraising. And started talking about, I started seeing kind of, the fundraising kind of lead being the quarterback, and in the grand scheme of things, they're not the ones that make all the R's. They execute the plays. Like the game plan is drawn up by the coaches and kind of the backroom staff, and that's really then doing kind of the strategic planning and what are the funding priorities. And you know, the quarterback can score, like they can get it over the line, but they're more often going to pass it off to their wide receivers, which could be volunteers. You know, pass it to their running back, which could just be the use of mail or automating kind of various fundraising strategies. And yeah, just again, the anecdotes come very quickly. I'm a sports administrator, so I love all the stats and looking forward to college football starting again. So when I wake up here in Australia, I can kind of peruse the stats and see the Longhorns flattered to see as always. But yeah, it was a very easy book to write, to be honest. So I'm dyslexic, so that's kind of which leans on how I write, and I have a very authentic writing style because it's basically a mosaic that I'm trying to kind of like mold in what I know I want it to be. And I articulate the things I struggle to say by interviewing people that are doing great stuff in the space as well, and emerging leaders. So yeah, the thesis is pretty simple at the end of the day, right? You know, the big non-profits like UNICEF, like Cancer Council and stuff, they have the money to employ the very best of fundraisers, and fundraisers, you know, in the US aren't paid handsomely. So getting into those six-figure roles, you know, they jump into it and they kind of get recruited quite quickly. So, but non-profits that are doing the real work in the communities that are, you know, trying to hold on to that kind of community fabric and pull it back together, and actually seeding some of the most innovative solutions to like homelessness, to social dislocation, to like all the things that are going to be exacerbated through this ripple effect coming out of COVID. You know, we should be doubling down on them. So I'm saying to them, you can have the best fundraisers out there. You just got to get out there, be very intentional in who you recruit, and understand that people can be a barista one day at Starbucks, start as a fundraiser the next day, and you can skill them up, and their ceiling is sky high. So you know, it's just finding talent, and fundraisers really it's personal skills. It's kind of the ability to storytell, the ability to sell. So kind of core selling comes into it, and it's just being able to make the ask and having a strategy around it. That's why I love recruiting marketers. I love recruiting political staffers, because they know how to work hard and they know how to sell a message to people and convert hearts and minds.
That's actually the question I was just about to ask you, Ryan, was I noticed in both books there's a real focus on bringing in the right people in order to kind of spark that innovation and that evolution and building this team and changing a culture. So like, what should people be looking for? You were just talking about storytellers, marketers. Are there certain traits people should look for? Is it a communication ability? Is it flexibility to learn new things? What sort of traits are the ones that we should go after?
Yeah, I think really you've kind of outlined a lot of it. I think kind of we're starting to see a lot of work in LQ now, so kind of that evolution from EQ. It's you know, their ability to learn, to kind of adapt, to pivot. You know, I like to. The reason why I learned so much in my time during COVID was I wanted to learn enough to be dangerous, as it were, like to connect the dots and to hold at that initial conversation. I don't need to be an expert in machine learning or AI. I bring the experts in the next thing. So again, it's all about strategy. It's a curiosity about the work. It's you know, kind of peeling that when you're actually given the funding priorities, to peel back what it looks like from you know, a human level, like, because you're trying to inspire these folks, and sometimes, especially for research, it's quite binary. Like, hey, fund this because we're looking into you know, solving X, right? So it's curiosity. It's the ability to hold a conversation, and really, when you're kind of looking for fit, it's really not the technical stuff. So when I go to recruit, and it's kind of the recruiting process as well, I look for where my flaws are and I fill them, and know that I can bring up their weaknesses by doubling down into their strengths, etc. You know, we hired a person that has no fundraising experience here, and he's just about to take a new frontline fundraising job in the College of Medicine, and because we just let him go out and explore and ideate, and again, just have the conversations. And a lot of people just, once they are able to handle rejection, the ask becomes second nature. Again, evolution of a good conversation, and it's all just zeros at the end of the day. So, as long as you can give them the strategy and the playbook, and this is what I hope encourages folks to do, is just be more strategic around engagement and the ask, and you'll get the rewards.
I think there's something there also, Ryan, about approaching your resource planning through a different lens. Like that's that's ultimately the combination of Billy Beane and Peter Brand. What they did is they looked at their problems, and there was a traditional lens, which was the scouting methodology, and then there was an alternate lens, which, yes, it was through the use of analytics, but too often people miss the point that the value that Peter Brand brought was a different analytic method for each problem that they were trying to solve. And so, there are two things that I want to encourage our listeners when they, two of the reasons why I love this book and that stood out to me is one, there's a whole chapter and section on the lack of strategic planning. And thank you for saying that, because I think that that's crucial. It's not that we don't engage in strategic planning, but is it truly strategic? And then the second, there's a quote midway through the book, some of the latter chapters, that, Ryan, you said this: if we build the team and all they have are the traditional tools, which have become mired in the mediocrity of some small to medium nonprofit fundraising shops, then this book would have been for nothing. So yes, think about the problem and think about it strategically and how you're going to solve it. And then second, as you've said on our time today, upskill the heck out of them, right? Continue that process of leaning into their strengths so that you can move forward, and so that we can get out of this trap of execution that we're seemingly caught in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, they don't have to go to, the big conferences. They don't need to go to AFP, Icon. They don't need to go to like any of the case higher ed ones that cost like $7,000 kind of all up. When I would much rather send them to South by Southwest and, kind of, think about what could be and just be inspired by other things. One thing I have employed here is like once a quarter we'll take the afternoon off and go do something complementary to our field. So, if we're looking at raising more scholarships for First Nations students, let's go on a tour that looks at kind of artifacts, and let's kind of meet with elders in those communities and learn more about it so we can be better advocates for them. So again, just let people's mind wander, and I let mine wander, and I have now written a couple of books, and it's helped me transition back to Australia. So just be open to where it goes, because the most dangerous thing right now is leaning into the status quo of fundraising, because it's not getting us the solutions we need. And we're just blaming each other pretty much. We're blaming the tools without, leadership blaming the fundraisers, and that's not what fundraising culture should look like. I mean, we're all fundraisers at the end of the day, and the quicker we can instill that into a organization, the better. Always lean on kind of when JFK went to Houston. So we're getting closer to Dallas. So we've been Austin and now Houston. When he went to NASA, right, and he asked one of the janitors there, what's your role here? And he said, I help fly people to the moon. And that's just a powerful kind of anecdote to everything we do. And it'd be great if the receptionist could go, when someone comes in and goes, hey, I'd like to make a gift, that they can have a conversation in that moment. They don't stress out and feel they have to get a fundraiser. And it's just it's an evolution, right? It's like even when you jump onto the website, you can be talking to a chatbot that can answer all the questions. And then when it gets to something that is a bit more nuanced, then they can, be transferred live to a fundraiser who's sitting on their computer. There's so much we can do, and we just got to be brave. And I love how the quote you used about Peter, because at the end of the day, he did bring something different, but it was leadership who backed him. who backed him to go, well, it's not working, so how do we really compete? And I want people to win, and winning isn't a kind of sporting thing here. Winning is giving food to someone that is going hungry. It's like kind of tackling poverty head on. It's philanthropy can see the solutions, and that's kind of, I feel I'm getting more back into government, because systems change only comes from changing the laws. But it doesn't mean that we can't inform that. And that's why I'm in higher ed fundraising. That research can really kind of move the needle for society on this.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So the book, Nonprofit Moneyball, how to build and future-proof your team for big league fundraising. It is on pre-order now. You can get a pre-order on Amazon and other places. And so would encourage our listeners to dive in and pre-order that. Future Philanthropy is available, so you can get both of those. And so, Ryan Ginard, what we really appreciate, man, is that you're being brave right now and stepping up and saying these things. We agree with you and want to affirm you in saying those. And even though we now find ourselves on opposite sides of the earth, that we align in so much of the way that we think. And so thank you for doing that. And thank you for being a part of this time here today.
No, thanks for amplifying voices like ours. Like there's a lot of me's out there, so let's listen to them.
Right on, man. Right on. Thanks for being here. We certainly appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.